Welcome to the next chapter of As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Paul Lask and Brian Moss to the podcast. Paul and Brian are in a new indie rock / emo band called Strategies with Neil Hennessy from the Lawrence Arms and Joyce Manor. The band is self-releasing their self-titled debut EP this Friday, August 26th. A link to the album will be in the show notes. The guys talk about their musical backgrounds, teaching online during COVID lockdowns, how Strategies took shape, lyrical inspiration, and more. I'm a big fan of the EP, and it was super fun getting to know Paul and Brian, so I hope you enjoyed today's chat with Strategies.
Peel open the night, step out in backyard, tame my treatments, pretend to check the gate. They could not down wind in the valley, blowing embers across the cold sand. By the time the fireflies were flickering through together, sheltered and remembered.
How's the weather out east?
Fucking sucks. It's hot. It's so hot.
Yeah. Where are you at again, geographically?
DC.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's only like mid 90s today, but humid. And
Yeah.
it's gonna be like 100 tomorrow. So,
Yeah. Is that normal for your zone, or is that kind of weird?
yeah. August into September, it's usually just like awful hot and no fun.
Yeah.
What's it like for you?
It's cool. I'm on the Oregon coast. It's a little bit cooler like here than it is in Portland and Eugene and all that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lucky.
Yeah, no, it's decent. There's, it doesn't really get above mid 60s or even 70. It's a pretty cool zone, but, it's got its pluses.
Yeah. Was it last year you guys were hit by that like crazy heat wave? Was that up that high where it was like ridiculously hot for the Northwest out there?
Yeah, totally. That keeps seeming to happen too.
Yeah.
So it's a little wonky.
I mean, every year, right?
Yeah, record-breaking 100-year storms and shit. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
but the climate change is false, right?
Yeah, no, it's not happening. Don't mind that.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Brian?
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having us, Brian.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love the EP. It's great, and so my philosophy is like, if I dig it, it gets on the podcast. And
Awesome.
New band, old band, doesn't matter if it's good. I like to share shit. So
Yeah. It's awesome.
Where are you located, Brian?
I'm in Morro Bay. I used to be. I'm from the Bay Area originally, but I've been
Okay.
down here for I guess this is going to be my third year. So
Nice. Rad. What is we were talking about the weather. What's it like for you?
it's foggy, but you drive 10 miles inland and it's super hot and sunny.
Nice.
Similar.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out this afternoon.
Roy boys.
Yo, what's up? Yeah, look at that.
It's too early for beers.
Wow.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out. Why don't each of you go and talk a little about what got each of you into music and your backgrounds. Whoever wants to start can go first.
Ryan?
Oh, you're throwing that on me? Okay.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
So, I would say kind of late. I always appreciated music growing up as a kid. I remember being super into oldies when I was really like the lower range of elementary school, which was, I don't know how I got into that. Maybe my mom or something. But then, late elementary school, early middle school, I was listening to, I'd say, like mainstream hip hop and like, shitty metal like Guns N' Roses and Metallica. and I think that, I enjoyed it, but it didn't really resonate with me in terms of a message. And I had some friends around eighth grade and early on in high school that were tuned into punk stuff and indie rock, and they kind of started sharing with me, making mixtapes and stuff. One of them was Jesse Michaels from Op Ivy's little sister, and another one had a brother who was in this band on Lookout as well called the Winona Riders. So it was, I think, their siblings got them on the pulse at a young age, and then that was shared with me, and things just snowballed from there, and I haven't stopped listening or playing since.
Yeah.
Yeah, that journey is somewhat similar. And then I also just had a buddy, my early teens, who was just more plugged into good music. So it kind of got me out of the gutter musically and into more resonant, sort of interesting stuff. And then of course just the community, just finding friends, and then that blossomed into travel, and just like that, just kind of one thing led to another. So yeah, similar story to Brian's.
That's awesome. What's your band trajectory like? I mean, I know you were in the Ghost, and Brian, you have a bunch of projects.
Like background or future?
Yeah.
So I grew up outside of Chicago in a town called Rockford, which was always its own city. Like it was the second biggest city in Illinois. So we had our own scene and we had our own world. And I would go to shows in Chicago, but not as regularly as one might in the suburbs. And so I just played in bands around there, and these sort of random little towns around Rockford and the exurbs, and met Brian and folks back in the day, and moved to Chicago and hopped in the Ghost, and then went on and played in a band called Tight Phantoms with a guy named Mike Lust, who had been in a band called Luster King, and then just started doing kind of like odds and ends projects in between before moving out to the West Coast and doing some more little projects. But I've just done a lot of recording projects and stuff since those Chicago days myself.
Yeah, shout out to that new Mike Lust solo record too. That thing is incredible. I can't remember the name of it right now. Do you know, Paul?
Not off the top of my head. I look at him.
But yeah, check out Mike Lust's new solo record. And then Paul and I also, when he was living in San Francisco, we did a project called Caught with some friends too. That was not much really became of that, but it was a blast. We never played a live show, but recording it was really fun, and writing it as well.
Nice. Yeah, Brian, I seeing your poster in the background, I remember listening to Black Snow last year and really digging that record too. So,
oh, thanks a lot. Yeah.
So it was, yeah.
Do you want me to? So yeah, I guess like for me, I started playing in some shitty, unmentionable bands early on in high school, maybe even late middle school, kind of around the same time that those friends started sharing mixtapes and so forth with me. But then right after high school, I was in a band called The Wonder Years, and that was the first band that, and not the one with the O, the one with a U, our record label. We originally spelled it with an O, but they were afraid of lawsuits. So yeah, that unfortunate spelling arose. But that band was the first band that I really started touring with. We kind of went through a couple different incarnations. Early on, I'd say it was pretty straightforward punk stuff, and then it became a bit more angular and atypical. And then I was in the Ghost, and we relocated from Oakland and Berkeley to Chicago, and that's where I met Paul. And wow, that was a fun stint I had out there. Living there, it's just a phenomenal city, so much culture, so many great people. The weather's shit, but and yeah, when that band disbanded, I was doing the Honolulu stuff, the solo stuff, and that's gone through a few different kind of modes, but that's generally been a bit more subdued than what I've done with full bands. And let's see, after that, when I moved back to the Bay Area, I was in a band called Ole Hole, which was much heavier, I'd say more in line with the Ghost, but even more so aggressive. And then I did Great Apes and Caught with Paul, and yeah, just more solo stuff. And now we got this strategies thing going. I'm playing music here on the Central Coast with a guy I met. It's going really well, and I'm not going to make any promises on releases. We're working on recording some stuff here pretty soon.
That's awesome. How did COVID hit you guys and impact you? I mean, outside of just like it sucked for everybody.
Paul and I both teach, so I don't know, Paul, you want to talk about that and that experience for you?
Yeah. I was actually Zooming some of my classes before COVID. And so the transition was relatively clean. We had to up our internet, here, like I think get a better service or something. But it actually wasn't that radical of a transition for me. I teach at a small community college on the Oregon coast. And, at most I'll have a dozen students in a class, maybe 15. So I was able to kind of keep things moving in a sort of normal-ish way. My wife was in grad school too at the time, so she was also able to kind of. It wasn't a radical transition professionally. Socially, it was weird, of course.
Yeah.
But like professionally, things were pretty tame, relatively tame.
Yeah, my experience was different for sure.
Yeah.
It was fucking bonkers because my wife and I decided to relocate from San Francisco to the Central Coast. Was offered a job teaching high school in San Luis Obispo, and we kind of pulled the trigger on the decision maybe 2 months or a month and a half into lockdown, and we've been hiding out at a cabin in the Sierras and kind of went back, packed everything up, and bounced. And we're in this new place. We couldn't meet anyone or really do much, and then I started this new job. Teaching on Zoom, which was super intimidating. I went from years of teaching 8th grade language arts to being thrust into teaching seniors AP Lang, which is I adore it. I would never go back to middle school. No offense to the middle school teachers out there, big ups. But yeah, it was the hardest work year of my life without a doubt. It was rewarding, and I think I did really well in that environment. But incredibly challenging. My wife was working from home too, so it was a madhouse.
Yeah, middle schoolers. I worked with middle schoolers for like 6 months, and I was like, never again. It's the worst. Well, now I just do like podcasting stuff and freelance, like audio editing work. But at the time, I was working at a city-run community center. I was running their recording studio, helping middle school hip hop artists and like metalcore bands launch their careers and learn how to record and write songs. And middle schoolers think they know a lot of things that they do not, as you know.
It's so rad, man. I've done some like nonprofit work, doing similar things, and I worked rock camps. I got Paul on board for one summer doing that. And I've kind of dreamed about starting up an NPO and just doing that in high schools, especially just giving underprivileged kids access to music and recording. So thank you for doing that. But yeah, middle schoolers are feral. It's like I would be my own worst nightmare as a student.
Right. Yeah, it was wild. Yeah, it is fun. Like I would have killed to have a studio like that when I was in middle school, a place to go, and like our band could record songs for free and then have something. But we had cassette decks that had a singular microphone in a shed.
Yeah, I legit remember rocking the Tascam 4-track and just how shitty those things sounded. But some people pulled it off. I've always said that if you could make a Tascam 4-track and like a Shure 57 sound good, then you're golden. You can do it in terms of recording.
Well, let's talk about this new project, Strategies. How did it get started?
So Neil and I have for many years just like hung out and made music. Sometimes tracked it on a 4-track, sometimes tracked it on laptop. But I think during COVID, we actually started doing cover songs, like assigning a cover song and then hopping on Zoom and just playing, whatever. But we just had a lot of little parts and ideas, and I think just started kind of sending them back and forth. The process was like, I'd send Neil a demo, and then he would put down some drums, and then send it back to me, and I would retrack tighter, and we'd have something like a song, and then, sent some of that over to Brian and asked if he'd be interested in putting some vocals down, and he was into it. And I mean, that's really how it came about.
Yeah, it was, Neil and Paul asked me to jump in on a couple of those cover Zooms, which was great for me because I was in a creative desert. I think it was kind of the culmination of finishing that Honolulu record, which took me forever. Yeah. And then just, COVID stuff and being really overwhelmed with a new job and a kid. So they kind of just got me back in the saddle, so to speak. And then when they asked me to kick down vocals, I was thrilled because I really liked what I heard. And, it's rare that I end up in a position where I'm not doing the majority of the songwriting or the lyrical writing. And so that it was just super, I don't want to say low stakes, but nice for me, like way less pressure because I'm my own worst critic and I can work really slowly. So it was really, I kind of like, I don't know, maybe I never want to write songs again. I will, but yeah, it was cool. And I didn't really play much guitar. There's little bits here and there, but it was just kind of like, show up and I don't want to say blow up because I don't know, maybe what I did was mediocre, but just kind of like mess around, find some melodies and work in the lyrics. It was super fun.
That's cool. Also add just like having worked with Brian like for a while, I kind of just, it's kind of cool to hear his voice when writing lyrics and what kind of melodies I would imagine. And so when that happens, that's cool. And when it doesn't happen, it's cool too. Cause it's just, I don't know. It's an interest. I don't think any of us have been in a situation quite like this. So it's just new for all of us to be, to be doing this. It's cool.
Yeah. I mean, we also all go, way back. The Ghost spent a ton of time touring with Lawrence Arms. I did it again with Great Apes, and I adore Neil. He's so multifaceted and talented and humble. And Paul and I, we know how one another plays and writes, and I think there's a lot of just mutual respect and love between the three of us.
Yeah,
that's cool. Where'd the name Strategies come from?
We had a list and discussed different ideas, and I think Neil put out Strategies. So it was his idea, and we just kind of ironed it out and agreed.
That's cool. Was Neil the driver for both the musical direction, or was there like a decision when you started writing, like we want it to sound like X thing?
No, I'm driving it at this point.
Okay.
And so the first song we released, we did discuss moving parts around, and as it goes on, it'd be great to have it be evolved more collaboratively. But as of now, a lot of it's just, so if it all flops, you can all blame me, but it's no problem.
I think it's all really kind of, it's consistent and it gels stylistically to me. I'm kind of the dude that if I'm songwriting, I'll often end up with a total curveball, and sometimes I'll leave it on a record, sometimes I won't. So again, kind of having a backseat role, it's awesome to just see how, again, consistent everything is stylistically.
That's cool. What led you to that kind of, I don't know, 90s Midwest emo / like, I don't know, early 2000s indie rock style sound? Like something particular, or is it just like, that's just what was coming out?
Yeah, no, I have such a eclectic Spotify kind of background, so I don't know exactly what I was listening to or how it all kind of came about that way, but it just, so some of the effects in Logic I really like some of the pedals and some of the sounds and stuff. So the stuff you can do on a laptop's pretty incredible. So, that's really, I can't say it was like one particular record or anything at the time.
What's interesting to me about it too, again, as almost an outside listener, is that I hear a lot of like shoegaze influence, and I don't even think that was intentional necessarily, but it's the end result is cool.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's cool because I hear a lot of like those first two Death Cab records. That sort of thing sticks out to me. Like it reminds me a lot of those first two Death Cab records.
Is that Transatlantic? What's that one called?
No, something about airplanes and what was it? Voting Yes, that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
There on that note, this is so luckily I'm old enough and mature enough that I just like resist the temptation. But I guess by talking about this, maybe I'm not though. The Lawrence Arms kind of re-ups the stuff we put on social, and it got a lot of attention there. And some guy, and I remember this from literally 20 years ago when I released the first Hanalei record. I don't know if he was like an internet troll or a critic, but he just ragged on the first Hanalei record for being a complete Postal Service ripoff because I was kind of combining, electronic elements and guitars, and I'm sure it's the same fucker, but he dropped a comment on the Lawrence Arms site, just like, "Oh, another Postal Service ripoff." I was like, "How is this dude?" Like, I instantly remembered it, but I'm like, "How is this guy still hung up on this bullshit?" Like, amazing. Like, what's the deal there? Wow. If you're listening, write me. Like, I just want to hug you. It's not, let me know. Did I do something to your mom? Like.
Is there anything driving your lyrics for this little EP?
I really like Bill Callahan's lyrics. They're so minimal and poetic. And I also like Wayne Coyne's lyrics and Blake's lyrics, Schwarzenbach's lyrics, like storytelling, imagery, minimalism, but also hopefully some beauty. Like I'm trying to, paint somewhat poetic, pretty images. Also, Billy Collins' poetry I was reading and enjoying, and some of his imagery. I'm now reading William Stafford, like he's like Oregon's poet laureate, and sort of looking at his ideas for this next EP we're working on. And so some of those lyrics. But I really like minimalist meets quiet meets like you kind of like got to do like inference, like imagine a little bit, and also just pretty imagery. So I don't know. I guess I think a lot about lyrics. It's more than I can explain the music.
The natural imagery to me is really striking. As someone that didn't have a hand in writing it for once, and I think there's these vivid images of these natural settings kind of combined with these narratives of relationships or like an interpersonal monologue. It's rad, and like I said earlier, I respect Paul's writing a ton.
It's funny how things like change and inspire the way you write at different times. I used to write a lot of like seafaring sailor imagery and like poetry and stuff, and like recently I've gotten deep into like multiversal science fiction, and so like everything is spacey and black holes and alternate dimensions and shit.
Those shifts are interesting for me, Paul, and correct me if I'm wrong, but now that you've been living in the Pac Northwest for some time, I feel like that location's a huge influence on your lyrics.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a fair amount of nostalgia for home in the Midwest, and I think part of the way I like remedy that is just this town I live in is pretty working class, kind of like the town I come from. It's an industrial-ish town. It's a crabbing town. And so I kind of just like overlap, my bouts of nostalgia. I just kind of like remedy with remembering that this place is like that, but it's totally different and frankly way more beautiful. So yeah, no, it's a tension for sure. And you're right. It's inspiring.
Homie, I mean, just remember, if you get too nostalgic and sad, you can just pack it up, move back to Rockford, and start roofing again.
So yeah, I come from a contracting family, and listening to like classic rock on roofs was definitely my introduction to riffing and all that. So yeah, there's always that if things go sideways.
There's always that. We mentioned a new EP in the works. What's the rest of this year look like in the future? I mean, this record comes out on the 26th.
Yeah. So a week from today, the next single comes out early, like a couple days early on Chorus FM. And then the next single comes out that Friday. And then, end of the month is the EP proper. And then we're right now working on a single. Neil just sent back a nice mix that Brian has. And we have that kind of in the works. We also have, and I talked to Pat about this to okay it, but we have a split in the works with Pat Ford from Colossal. I think he's calling his new project Romanesque, and he sent that tune over, and it's awesome. So hopefully we'll have that out by the end of the year. But I think this project, we're not like putting any fine, hard dates on anything. We're just letting it kind of go. It'd be nice to all get together and record or to play live here and see where that goes. But correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, it's pretty evolving at its own pace, and yeah.
The future is unwritten. Yeah, but it's fun. I kind of like having no pressure expectations on it. It feels low stakes, which is cool. I think Neil is so ingrained in his other projects and so busy with that sometimes he's got to focus on that first.
Yeah, and it's easy. You put the EP up on Bandcamp or Spotify, or do a short run of cassettes for pretty cheap if you want, or like everything can be in house so much easier than it used to be.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about the cassettes. If I could get a cassette, I should look. Actually, if I could get a cassette deck in my car, I would totally rock it. I still have all my old cassettes from back in the day. And yeah, I mean, some people hate them nowadays, but there's, I'd say maybe the past 5, even 10 years, there's been that small resurgence of interest in the game. They're just so cheap to make. I think they look cool, and you're not sitting there as you would be with vinyl waiting for 6 to 8 months on the turnaround. But if anyone pitches a compact disc to me, I'm like, you're out of your mind. Actually, my record, AF insisted on it, and I was honestly, I love Chris and that label, but I'm so bummed on CDs.
I get that. Yeah. Cassettes are great, and it's like if I go to a show and I see an opening band I've never heard of and they got a cassette, like it's way easier to drop $5 to $8 to pick up their cassette tape than $30 on vinyl. So like
totally.
Yeah.
Remember laser discs, Paul? Do you remember Al's laser discs?
Oh yeah, huge.
Yeah. Gold, I think they were.
As you fall asleep tonight, please know that I will love you all the time. All the time, all the time, all the time, all the
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our intro music was written and composed by Jeremy Hunt. The As the Story Grows theme is by Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can join us at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. Be a part of our community and join the ongoing conversation over on Discord. If you enjoy this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.
I never felt so young and alive as when I'm diving into a tune. And now I'm learning as I listen along, and the wheels are turning, and I started a song. One good word and I'm gone. Oh, as the story grows, more I want to know, more I want to show you as the story grows, as the story grows. You can create something lasting and great, something passionate and real. And I'll bring in my own good feelings, I'll sing it with meaning. Let's just attack it and never look back. It's wild and fantastic. All together at full power, we're so much better. What's that word I'm missing? If you help me, I'll listen. What's that word I'm missing? Can you help me? I'll listen. Oh, as the story grows, the more I want to know, the more I want to show you as the story